Hello, my name is Mary Moore. I'm a member of the Thurston County League of Women Voters. Welcome to another one of our candidate forums brought to you by the League. The League is a nonpartisan group of men and women who are concerned about state, local, and national issues. Today we'll be hosting the primary election candidates for the position of State Representative for District 22, Position 2. We would like to thank TCTV particularly for all their assistance and their support. Without them, we could not hold these forums. We're very deeply grateful to you. We have this morning with us, we have Justin Cover and we have Chris Ward. We are missing a third candidate this morning, and that is Sam Hunt, who had something else that he had to do, and he agreed to it before he knew this was going to happen. So we'll miss him, but we have our two candidates here. And gentlemen, these are your instructions for the day. I will give each one of you 1 minute to make your opening remarks. Introduce yourselves to us and to the viewing public. And then I have 7 questions. I will address the questions to you each in turn, and you will have 1 minute to respond. After we're done with the 7 questions, then you will have 1 minute in which to do a kind of a wrap-up, your final please vote for me statement. Then I have a few things to say and we'll wrap up. Is that clear?
Very
Absolutely.
good.
Okie doke. Well then, let's start. Justin, why don't we start with you and your opening remarks.
Hello, I'm Justin Cover. My campaign is about open government, truth in budgeting, and protecting our initiative process. I'm a local citizen activist who's worked on many local issues. I worked on the Olympia 2009-2014 water system plan, where my work exposed a cumulative 37% water rate increase on our working families, which makes me the only candidate in this race whose work has brought a net savings to the people of the 22nd District. I also stood tall for Capitol Lake as a managed lake. I believe that our capital is the greatest capital in our union, and I believe that we will have a healthy Capitol Lake if we follow the managed lake option, and I will work to procure money to dredge, clean, and keep Capitol Lake. I believe the answer to our revenue problems is not tax increases, but to control spending. Since 1998, in spite of talk of cuts, state-level spending has went up every single year. I believe the answer to raising revenue is to promote local business, not to raise taxes on our working families. I will promote business interests of living folks from here in the 22nd District over far-off corporations who don't care about our community. I'm in favor of realistic climate change policy with a focus on food and water production, rather on duplicating what's going on the federal level. I have 2 spending priorities as a legislature. One is preserving state worker jobs and benefits, and the other one is awarding the teacher cost of living allowances that voters awarded to our teachers when they passed Initiative 732 with a 63% vote. As your legislature, I will respect the initiative process and seek to grant the same privacy to petition signers our incumbent would grant only to state workers. Above all, I will be obedient to my constituents. I'm Justin Cover. My campaign is about open government, truth in budgeting, and protecting our initiative process. I'd like to thank TCTV and the League for having us, and please vote for me on August 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Chris.
Hello, my name is Chris Ward, and I'm running to manage our financial and environmental services. We must budget, manage our resources through budgeting. Budget is spiraled out of control despite voter initiative on 960, which said the state could not raise its taxes without voter approval. And the legislature chose to do that anyways. We also need to restore I-728 to fund education, which gave lottery proceeds to fund our education, and they chose to void that as well. We must also invest in sustainable environmental resources through solar, wind, and nuclear resources.
Thank you. That's fine. Thank you. I will now ask a question of you, Justin, and then you'll have a minute to answer. And then Chris, if you would answer the same question. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So, Justin, here's question number 1. What do you see as the 2 or 3 major challenges for the next legislature other than balancing the budget?
Ooh. I know transportation issues are going to be a big issue. I know that there's a big project going on. They're talking about, I believe it's Highway 520, where we have both transportation and environmental issues that are going to need to be addressed. Finding funding for that is going to be challenging, and I think that's going to be one of the transportation. It's going to be one of those things. More than that, though, is going to be education. Like I said, funding those cost of living allowances is going to be a tough sell, but I think that we can locate enough waste and enough duplication within our state administration that we can find money for those things. Third, right along with education, is I will always be a vote against state worker benefit cuts and layoffs. Again, I'm going to be looking for duplication in state administration and waste so that we can avert some of these layoffs.
Thank you, Justin. Chris?
3 big issues I see is mass transit. We need to improve regional transit, bringing in Sound Transit train that would connect us to Seattle and Tacoma, as well as connecting us down to Vancouver. We need to also improve with our partners to the west with Mason Transit to improve service between the counties. And then in addition to that is education. Our education system is seriously lacking due to an unwillingness to change. We've not changed the way we educated in probably about 50 years. And it's led to a lot of wasted money, and it can be better utilized in new technologies. And thirdly is renewable resources. We must be responsible with the resources we have and only use clean resources.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to start this time with Chris, and I'm going to ask you, should you be elected and the legislature must decide on whether to maintain Capitol Lake as a lake or an estuary, what would be your position and why?
I believe that the citizens would get the most benefit using it as a lake with the private park, similar to the way it is used now. I'd like to see it cleaned up so it actually could be used, and maybe even having some sort of recreational fishing, either stocking with natural fish that would breed and limiting the catch there, or just leaving it as a natural lake, but I think the community gets the most benefit having it as a lake and a park.
All right, thank you. Justin, same question.
Yes, I'm on record already as definitely being in favor of Capitol Lake. 2 reasons. 1, if we follow the original managed lake plan that was put into place and dredge the clean silt out of Capitol Lake, we will get the healthier body of water. We will get cooler water temperatures in Capitol Lake that will make it less hospitable for the kind of problems that are polluting our lake with natural pollution right now. Also, I read the Deschutes Estuary feasibility study, and the plan to create the estuary means dredging and disposing of silt that is polluted with furan and dioxin. Now, as people who know that when you dispose of polluted silt, the cost goes up exponentially. Furthermore, the plan to dispose of that silt means to dispose of it in places like either Portland or Commencement Bay. So not only would it mean that we're saying not in our backyard, we're also going to be pitching our trash right over our neighbor's fence. our neighbor's fence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now for you, the next question, Justin, and that is, as a result of the Public Records Act, in the electronic age, the number and volume of requests to state and local government has increased by a great deal. How do you see balancing the need for open government while ensuring that the increasingly large and frequent requests do not deter the government from performing its necessary function?
I know that the volume is a problem. I also know that the Public Records Request Law gives government the option. They can either respond to public record requests within 5 days, or they can deny a request and give the reason why they deny. But they can also tell the people that, we can handle this, but we need this amount of time. So I believe that's something that, as long as we have a fair process to determine that people are receiving their records requests in the proper amount of time, that's a good start. And I know that one area where there's duplication at the state level is Department of Information Systems. I believe consolidating that could help improve the response times.
Thank you. Chris?
In this day of information, there's no reason why a non-security risk information cannot be presented immediately through either private websites maintained by the government or through social media networks that are maintained by the government. They could easily put the information out on their own Facebooks, MySpaces, or government agency websites. It would cost very little for them to hire web designers to maintain this information, and then it becomes available to 6 million people at no additional cost. I believe that's the most efficient and cost-effective way to get this information out to the public.
Thank you. Thank you. Now our next question, which you will have your first shot at, Chris, is state colleges and universities are increasing tuition by 14%, making higher education unaffordable by many students. What would you support to maintain financial accessibility for the students of our state?
Affordable education is important, but in order to have a great education, we can't just say the cost is low, because we need to have the best educators, and those cost money. We need to pay them fairly for the job they do. So we may need to look at cutting scholarships to athletes in favor of bringing down the general tuition to academic students. Also maybe increasing the cost of football and basketball tickets $1 or $2 and putting that money into a general tuition fund to help fund and keep the cost of tuition affordable to all students.
Thank you. What do you think, Justin?
I think that the incumbent in this race is already on record as saying that we have top-heavy administration within our education system. Mm-hmm. I'd be looking at ways to reduce the cost of that administration. Also looking at ways to get those education professionals, many of those administrators are education professionals, into classrooms so that we can lower class size at the same time that we reduce the needs to increase spending on education.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, now I start with you again in this case. It appears that the income tax initiative I-1098 will be on the ballot this fall. If passed, do you intend to support it? And if so, why or why not?
If it is passed, I would be inclined to support it because one of the planks of my candidacy is to protect the initiative process. Whether I agree or disagree, I will be obedient to my constituents. At the same time, I'm not in favor of Initiative 1098 because I don't believe it's only a tax on the top rung of our society. People in business can control their income, and if they feel an increased tax burden, they can lower the amount of income that they declare. At the same time, as the income tax begins to creep down and they look to raise revenues from the lower brackets of our society, workers will find themselves trapped within the income tax. So I would be against that at this point.
Thank you. Chris, what about you?
If the initiative is passed, I will respect it. I believe that the voters are the fourth branch of the government. However, I do oppose it. I believe that even though at this point in time they're saying it's only going to affect the richest few percent, the legislature will move to bring the levels down. They might move it from 200,000 down to 75,000 in, say, 3 years, and then in 5 years it'll be down to 50,000, and before we know it, we will all be taxed. I completely oppose this initiative, but if passed, I will respect the will of the voters.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'll go back to you, Chris. Besides money, what do you believe should be done by the state legislature to provide the best possible education for the children residing in Washington State?
We need to update the way we educate. We need to increase online public schools, and we need to allow them to compete against each other. We need to be able to say that Bethel is competing against Clover Park, against Olympia School District, and this way we get the best possible education. We know that when businesses compete, the consumer benefits, and if we do this for education as well, the customer, meaning the children and their parents, will benefit by giving us the best education system in the country. We can also reduce costs by discontinuing the purchase of textbooks in favor of newer technology. We could provide students with Kindles or netbooks at the cost of one textbook per student. Right now, high school students are using on average 8 textbooks at $300 a piece. If we discontinue this, we could give each student one Kindle or one netbook at the cost of one textbook, and that would substantially save our cost.
Thank you. Justin.
Thank you. I believe in a reprioritization of education funds and putting teacher pay and teacher professional development at a higher priority than fancy architecture and technology. For my part, I learned long division on a slate board, and I learned it because I had a teacher who was well compensated and had the opportunity to have professional development in his career. That's the thing that's going to drive us into the future. If we have smart, well compensated teachers, then we will be able to come out of this economic slump.
Thank you. And one final question to the two of you. Again, we'll start with Justin. What are your budget priorities?
My budget priorities? Okay, teachers and people, pretty much that's it right there. I want to get the teachers their cost of living allowances that they've been awarded by plebiscite. And also when I say people, I mean our state workers. I mean the core of our local economy is our state workers. And our government does need some streamlining, but that doesn't mean that we're going to break the promise that we make to our workers. So if you read my voter pamphlet statement, you'll see me talking about putting people over things.
Thank you. Chris?
Our budget priorities need to be to our citizens. There are a lot of citizens that are finding themselves out of work in this current climate. We need to make sure that they have the unemployment benefits that they have earned through paying in unemployment insurance every week. We need to make sure that if they need it, they have access to food stamps and affordable housing. We also need to make sure that we're funding education and returning lottery funds to the education fund would definitely help with that. We also need to prioritize transit and emergency services. Our firefighters and police department definitely deserve the funding that they need.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. You have been very concise in your responses to our questions, and now you have a chance, each one of you, for a minute in which to wrap up. And perhaps we'll start with you, Justin.
All right, great. Thank you for having me. I'm Justin Cover. My campaign is about open government, truth in budgeting, and protecting our initiative process. I'm looking to put money back into the pockets of our citizens. I'm looking to preserve the jobs of our state workers, and I'm looking to promote business. You know, I believe one of the problems we have in our community is we have an us versus them dynamic going on, the public versus the private sector, you know, the business versus the state sector. That's not what we need. What we need is to work together. We need to have our private sector generate the revenues so that our public sector can keep being the professional safety net that they've been all these years. And that is pretty much where I'm coming from. It's about people instead of things. I'm Justin Cover. My candidacy is about open government, truth in budgeting, and protecting our initiative process. And I'm asking you to please vote for me on August 17th. Thank you.
Chris?
like to thank League of Women Voters for having us in today, and thank you, the viewers, for taking time to watch our discussion today. I support responsible, sustainable management of our financial and natural resources, as well as our education and emergency services. Definitely appreciate getting your votes on August 17th. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, watching audience, for paying attention to our candidate forum today. We hope that it helps you to make up your mind for whom you are going to vote. Voting in a primary is just as important as voting in the fall, in the final election. And so, as a member of the League of Women Voters who believes in good government and believes in your democratic right to vote, please make sure that you are registered and make sure that you do cast your ballot at the appropriate time. For more information about the election or how to get registered, please go on our website, www.lwvthurston, that's all one word, .org. Thanks once again to TCTV, and we hope you enjoyed this forum.